Casper, good morning.
Good morning, Martin.
Good morning.
It's Friday morning.
It's Friday morning. Difficult times on the market yesterday. So I want to ask you a question. How people should trade like Warren Buffett?
I have some answer about it, but your question is also really good.
I think I asked the question actually wrong. How to trade like Warren? How people should how to trade like Warren?
No, but your question is fundamentally completely right, because a lot of people think that Warren Buffett is an investor, a buy and hold investor. But Warren Buffett is a trader. So your question is really good. We're going to talk about it, but first, yesterday, what happened? On
we had on Wednesday the biggest rise of the U.S. markets since June 2020.
Yeah.
So after the Corona crisis crash, to call it like that. And then yesterday, the same amount of increase that we had in the market was lost again. So we dropped in the Nasdaq almost 5%, which was the biggest dip since, I think 2020 November. So all in all, very hectic times, a lot of volatility in the market.
Why?
Now the main reason, it's of course, we know a little bit why it is. The inflation is a big thing. The extreme fears for tightening from the central banks. When we had last year a lot of discussions about when they're going to raise the interest rates, when they're going to do it, and they didn't do it. Now we are seeing that it's they normally raise the interest rates with 0.25%. They did it on Wednesday with 0.50. The United Kingdom, the UK, also raised the interest rates with almost 1%, so which was the highest rate hike since 2009 in the UK. Yeah, you see a lot of negative news as well. The German production fell with 4%. Today, for instance, the Dutch bank ING had really bad figures due to... They went up slightly, but because of the... But it's all in all, there's a very negative cocktail about the market. And the main thing, sorry that I don't let you talk, is the tech companies. They evaluate the earnings lower towards the future. And I know you don't really agree with that, huh?
Yeah, I don't agree, but it's also for investors, it's very difficult. So there was not a lot of more news on Thursday than on Wednesday. On Wednesday it went up with 3, and on Thursday it went down with 4.5. So that's always difficult to understand. And also the future earnings. Yeah, it's also the future earnings of Shell. They are under pressure due to that the interest rates go up. So I think it's not really a big...
You can relate that to any company.
Yeah, they say the tech sector is a company that only will generate earnings in the future. And I think that Google already earns a lot in today, and also for Microsoft. So I think it's a little bit an over argument, so that they push the tech sector in a certain area.
But I think the biggest thing we could say is that it's mainly the fears for what the central bankers are going to do. For the rest of the year. It's the most aggressive since 2000, the most aggressive tightening policy.
Yeah, and then we're going to talk about it, but through the glasses of Warren Buffett. Probably you know Warren Buffett.
I hope so.
And every year, and it was the first time in 3 years, I think, they came together on their national the day.
Yeah, with his friend.
Yeah, and they were sitting like this. They're sitting with the 4 in a row, but the main 2 characters from the Muppet Show are in the beginning. But it was again an amazing setting, and we want to highlight some of those the things that were said back there. But at the beginning, always they say Warren Buffett is a buy and hold investor, and that's not true. Of course, he holds some stocks for a long time. Yeah. But for example, last Monday and Tuesday, they bought, and that's always, of course, through their investment company Berkshire Hathaway, but they bought for $350 million of Occidental Petroleum. Yeah. $350 million.
It's a lot.
Warren, when he wakes up, he reads the news. He has his fixed news centers where what he's watching and what he's reading, and then he calls with his person that does trades. Every day, he will call him and say, okay, I want to buy this and I want to sell this. Now, if you buy every day, I think you can't say you're an buy and hold investor.
No, you're not. No, you're or you have to buy something and never sell it. But yeah.
And of course, that is then they have a chunk, for example, of Chevron, and they buy some extra shares and they sell it again. So in the basics, they hold their positions, but on the other hand, they also move a lot. We're going to talk about it later. But you can't say that Warren Buffett is a buy and hold investor and he never does a trade. He trades every day. For example, only Monday, Tuesday, $350 million. The funny thing is, if you look at it, at Warren and his vice president Charlie Munger, they have a good time.
Yeah.
So it takes hours, and the investors. They can ask them questions. They prepare, of course, something, but they have fun together and they have humor together. So and I think that's what people like nowadays.
Yeah,
if you look like the quarterly figures of other companies, it's always strict and everything. But they have fun and they know a lot about it. Well, you want to ask me a question or should I start?
Go ahead.
Okay. First with the boring part.
The boring part, yeah.
And it's about the company, the fund itself, Berkshire Hathaway. So they presented the figures, and the net earnings that was 43% lower year to year than the previous period, and that was 5.46 billion. The operating earnings were 7 billion. That was almost the same. But if you look, for example, in the insurance underwriting business, the earnings dropped with 94% to 47 million, so from 764 million. So it's not like it's a company that nothing is going on.
No.
They presented also not that good figures. The figures from this manufacturing, service and retail jumped with 15% to 3 billion. And the railroad, we're going to talk about a little bit later, the railroad investments, they increased slightly. And of course, what always is important, how much cash do they have?
Yeah.
Because they have a lot of cash.
They have, yeah.
I have a chart here, but they have a lot less cash than the end of previous quarter.
I can see that, yeah. I always look at your papers, but I do it now as well.
So you see it here,
yeah.
And I draw a line.
Yeah.
They have the same amount of cash, not percentage,
About 5
amount
years
of
ago.
cash than in 2017. So that's 5 years ago. Why?
Yeah, but they've possibly been buying more stuff.
Yeah. But why do you think they do? Because they have always a lot of cash, no?
They always have quite a big amount of cash, yeah. I can't tell you. I didn't investigate it, so tell me.
It's the inflation thing, mainly.
So they yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So what did they do? So they had 144 billion of cash at the end of last quarter. Now they have 106. What they do, they bought the biggest investment. I don't know how to pronounce it. You know this? I don't. Allegheny. That's the biggest deal since 2016 for 11 billion, and that's that's a railroad company. It's an investment company. It's coming from the railroad area, and they still invest in railroad companies. Occidental, 7 billion, HP 4.5, and they bought back for 3.2 billion of shares. But last quarter, the quarter before, was more than 6 billion. So then you are missing, if you calculate very fast, you're missing 13 billion. So they decreased their cash with 38 billion. Probably they didn't. I didn't see that much, but probably they increased their share in Chevron.
Chevron also what I heard was some banks.
Yeah.
Because that he likes banks because he understands their business.
Yeah. I don't understand the business. No, I do understand.
But the company itself, people can buy of course it's an investment vehicle, but you can buy it as a stock on the stock market.
Yeah. And for example, at the last day of last year, it was trading at $300. And yesterday it closed, so Thursday it closed at $319. So it's still 6% up. If you compare that to the S&P 500, that was 4,800 at the last day. It's now 4,100 something. Yeah. So it's around 14% down. 6% up versus 14%. So they do something right. Of course, they earn from the oil companies.
It's a different. The listing on itself is also quite special. No, it has an X amount of stocks.
Yeah.
It's not like. It has a specific vehicle. I can't really explain how. Maybe I shouldn't bring it up then, but What I heard about, he wants his investors to be as like being in a church, right? There's only X amount of seats available in the church, and I only want those people coming to my church that believe in what I'm saying. Right?
Yeah, and that's more important. So you must believe him. You must understand him. And I think that he's getting more popular. He had also some periods in the recent past where he was performing less.
Mm-hmm.
And so now people are starting to look again more to what he say, because if you outperform for the first quarter, minus 14 against plus 6. It's quite a good outperformance. Well, so there I'm going to talk about it. What is he like a person? How does he think? But you also have some questions or some remarks.
I mean, when of course you said you were going to talk about Buffett, and it's really interesting, but then you start listening to some podcasts. I mean, I was laughing literally a couple of times because the way he talks and the way he lives things, and you can't bring anything you can't say anything against everything that he says.
No,
I wouldn't say he's always right, but he is always right. It's like I'm really contradicting myself here, but what he said, just makes sense what he's saying.
Yeah, and you must see it. He's 98, 91 years old. His vice president is 98, and he's sitting next to him. He says less than Warren, and he's eating all the time some nuts of some cookies, and he has something in front of him with cookies, and then he's sitting and he what's in there, and he takes it and he eats it, he likes it, and so he's all focused on the. So together they are 190 years old, and they mention it a couple of times. And they said also this period, so like the last 2 years, is the most difficult period on the stock market. It's more like a casino, and they really mentioned brokers like Robin Hood that are entering the market, or clients, new type of clients that are entering the market through Robin Hood. And they have small amounts like $500 to invest, and if you have $500, we also mentioned in the past, you most of the people gamble with it.
Because it's no serious investment.
No, so and so he said also, they said, this is really difficult, and the country should act against it, because that is not where stock markets are used for gambling. Then you have to go to the casino.
No, exactly. One really funny thing is that he said when he buys a stock, why you bought this or this? And he said, well, because I just think it's worth more money in 10 years' time.
Yeah, and he doesn't buy stocks, he buys companies.
Exactly, but that's of course the stock of a company, right? But that is a really different ball game. How many times did we speak in the past with a client who says, and then he bought something on Monday, and on Wednesday it's 2% down, and he.
But he also mentioned that if he buys something, then he wants at the moment he buys a company, then he hopes it goes down.
Yeah.
Because then he said then I can buy more for less.
Yeah.
So he has an opposite mindset.
Yeah.
And also there was a question from the audience about the Bitcoin. Then he said, and then he talked really slowly. He said, if, for example, if I can buy 1% of all the apartments in the US, I will probably write out a check for $25 billion. If I can buy 1% of all the land in the US, I will probably write out a check of $25 billion.
Yeah.
If somebody offers me all the Bitcoin, I would pay probably for it $25. because it doesn't produce anything, so I have to find somebody who's going to pay more for it, because it doesn't produce, it doesn't give me any dividends.
No, it's not like what he always says, it's not like a farm where you produce bushels of wheat or corn or whatever.
And also the funny thing is, I said, we don't any clue how the stock market opens on Monday. No. We don't have any clue.
No.
And that's what we also say. We also don't know. And everybody said, no, this is going to happen. Please be aware of those people. No, on Friday it's at this level. This is level. And what I said, he hopes that it goes down, because then he can buy it cheaper. Did you want to say another one?
Yeah, there's so many things that you can say. I mean, I also heard him quoting on Elon Musk. What do you think about Tesla? What do you think about? And then he said, he was very diplomatic. He said, I think there's room for improvement. And then it was about Twitter, and he said, literally, I only did 7 tweets because of my best girlfriend. She asked me, Warren, shall I tweet this? Well, do it, because I don't have any clue how to do it, so do it for me. So he has, in all his life, he made 7 tweets. And also, I mean, about the way he sees things, now also the society, and it's very difficult. Say, I have 6 kids, And of course, the vision of how to, because my less smartest kid is, he's maybe the best kid of all of them because he shares everything, but he's not the kid I want to give money to do to take over the business, etc. So it's very difficult, all these little small arguments that he gives on how the government should deal with poor people and rich people and how to divide the GDP, etc. So.
Yeah, and he talked a lot about inflation.
A lot, yeah.
And you should watch it. He said they are one of the biggest builders, and they said we are facing inflation every day. Every day the prices are increasing. And I said also, he said he was wearing a suit and a tie, and said this is probably the first time this year I'm wearing a suit.
Yeah.
And the dry cleaners, they must be screwed now because nobody is bringing. Oh no, he said the dry cleaner where my wife goes, they don't see any white shirts anymore. So that's he mentioned it in between. So everybody I think knows that he lives in a house of only $600,000 where he lives for 50 years. His wife goes to the dry cleaner himself. Yeah. But he used all those examples. And what he said is the debt that is now, that's a big problem. And he said, we are experimenting with this economy. And he said, Charlie and myself, we are watching the most interesting economic movie we have ever seen. Yeah. And he said, everything within economy, if you do something, if you act, there is a reaction. And he said, we don't know what the reaction will be. There will be a reaction. Now, one of the reactions, of course, is the inflation. And they say to the Americans, we have to pay this bill. The taxpayer pays the bill. He said that's not true because since the high inflation, no taxes are raised. None of them. No. He said even the tax income this year probably will be 2.3 trillion, and the previous years it was 2.6 trillion. Yeah. So who's paying the bill? And he said that are the people that buying the government bonds. They're buying our debt. It's almost all external debt. External means outside of the America. US, yeah. And then he said, okay, the investors paid, and that are mostly the Chinese people. But that they don't say on television. Our debt is paid by the Chinese. Yeah. But it's also we talked about China last week. The problems in China, yeah. And this is another problem. But we know that. But he allocated it again. Those are paying our debt. And then he also said, the inflation is a serious thing, and you can do two things about hedging inflation. He said. And the first thing is, and that's also the most important thing, is your own earning power. Yeah. And he said, if you are a lawyer, if you are a surgeon, then if you are good, you will get a piece of the national pie. Yeah. Because the prices go up and you get your piece percentage-wise, so you will get your money. So invest in yourself, do something where you're good in. Then that's the best hedge against inflation. And the second best one, they said, okay, own or invest in a good company, like Coca-Cola, of course, they mentioned that, they're a big investor in Coca-Cola. I said, because then the people give a part of the labor to you. Yeah. So if it goes up, price go up, labor price will go up, and they are willing to give you a part of the pie. So that they mentioned two ways to hedge inflation: your own earning power and invest in a good company. And then Charlie responded on that. Yeah, you have to be a good brain surgeon and invest in cola instead of government bonds. Don't invest in government bonds. That's also contradictory. Somebody has to pay the bill. They're not going to pay the bill. And I said, so there are also consequences. And he said, very soon, that was what the President Biden announced, that 85% of all the Americans get a check of $1,400.
Why is that?
Yeah, to help the society. So 85% of all the Americans will get a check soon of $1,400. On the contrary, a couple of years ago, it was calculated that 40% of all the Americans couldn't show $400 in cash. So a couple of years ago, 40% of all the US people didn't have $400 in cash. So then you can see what is it, what for. This is a big action, and what are the consequences? So they're really afraid of all the consequences. And they also mentioned some old economists like Keynes, and they said, Keynes already said that inflation is an invisible tax that only one out of the million people understand. And he said, Warren closed his speech about it and said, since I was born, or maybe since I understood it when he was 12 maybe, $1 lost 94% of its value.
Yeah, it's worth nothing anymore.
But the note itself is still $1.
Yeah, that's true.
So inflation, they are really, really afraid for the inflation. They're worried about the society also, and I think that's that. But they also gave some solutions for yourself, how you can, as a human being, and how as an investor, how you can react on that. So my advice to you is, he said much more because it was hours. It's hours. But have a look. You are now on YouTube, so after giving us the thumb. And comment whatever, then you can go to a
thumbs up.
Thumbs up. You type in Warren Buffett last weekend, and then you see a much more of his amazing quotes. But what we want to say is that he shows in this difficult times that he can make the difference.
Oh yeah,
and it's a significant difference. +6, -14 against -14, and then also why? Because he looks at stocks from a different, really down to earth perspective.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's what I wanted to say. What do you?
I think it's really interesting. I think people go and watch it. Thank you for watching, and have a great weekend. Stay careful out there.
Thank you. Bye bye.